with that, welcome to another episode of Here Come the Irish. Vic Lombardi, joined by my pal Ryan Harris. We are in Denver, Colorado, where fall is fast approaching. Hey, Rhino, I heard from some of my buddies who attended ND with me back in the day, and they're actually watching the show now. People are starting to figure out that this exists, starting to make me nervous.
And especially with that awesome mustache, dude. I love
You
it,
like
brother.
this?
Keith, right? It's like a detective. You're like I'm missing the coffee mug, and you're like, it's the brother. You know what I mean? Like, just walk around and start saying that.
I have never in my life owned facial hair, ever. This is the first time, and I'm not sure what to do with it. It is my first official lip sweater. It took me a good 5 decades to get one going. But listen, Notre Dame is 3-0. Notre Dame is ranked number 4 in the country. Did you expect this kind of success this early in the season?
I did, and it's all because of Ian Book. I mean, you have a guy who has now started over 25 games for Notre Dame, and you come back as a quarterback with that much knowledge and the rapport that he has with Tommy Rees. That's the missing piece. What I did not count on is how much talent would show up. Just a year ago, Chase Claypool and Chris Fink accounted for almost 1,000 yards of receiving, and they're gone. And what happens? Well, now welcome to the family, Michael Mayer, Tommy Tremble, and also don't forget now after that last game, Javon McKinley. And Javon McKinley was the missing piece. You have to have a deep threat wide receiver, and Notre Dame found that last week.
Man, it's like a machine, year after year, talent after talent. By the way, did you see what Claypool did for the Pittsburgh Steelers last weekend?
And I did, and I'm on the Fantasy Football Hour, and they've been making fun of me the first 3 weeks for getting Chase Claypool. I was the one laughing today, but that's something that Coach Kelly talked to me about when him and I discussed a couple of years ago. So, what's the big thing you've learned, in the last few years? He said, when we lost to Alabama, I realized that we as a program didn't have the depth to compete. And right now, Notre Dame has that depth. So just something you won't find on the stat sheet, but the fact that so much talent, as you mentioned, Vic, can show up and produce right away. I mean, that's a big credit to Coach Kelly.
Well, the beauty of this show is we go everywhere. We talk to everyone, a lot of Notre Dame legends. Who's on tap later in the show? Which Notre Dame legend are you going to interview this time around?
We got an awesome interview with the one and only Joe Theismann. I can't wait for everybody to see it.
Nice. Joe T. We've talked to Joe several times, and I'm sure he's having fun golfing in his part of the country right now, so I can't wait for that interview. We're also going to be interviewing writers for the Notre Dame Observer, the student newspapers who have been covering the Notre Dame football team, get their thoughts on what to expect out of the Louisville Cardinals this weekend. Let's recap what happened last week. Florida State, once proud Florida State, they got some struggles. But you saw the rust out of Notre Dame after skipping a couple weeks. Incidents occurred. Fumbles happened. Didn't bother them in the end, but you saw a little bit of early, didn't you?
Yeah, and a couple of mistakes. Keys just having that quick fumble, as well as Kyron Williams. But how about this? Kyron Williams has a fumble in his first carry and then rips off a 64-yard run the very next carry. So what I love is that, yes, there was some rust, but they came back and made up for it quickly. I also love that Coach Kelly and the staff gave guys who made mistakes another opportunity. Lawrence Keys was back out there after having some issues with the punt. And Kyron Williams, as I mentioned, got another chance to carry the football and had an amazing day. And what that does for players is it gives you total confidence. Great leaders create space for failure on the way to success. And that's what we saw last week against Florida State.
Hey, can I ask you something? The run game is tremendous. I mean, the fact that you have 2 100-yard rushers in one game and some of the whole gaping holes. I mean, what those linemen are doing up front, lineman U here in college football. Is
O-line U, baby. Yeah.
Hey, that incident when Eichenberger went down with the eye injury, he looked like Rocky Balboa, right? He left the game.
Yeah.
How does that happen with the face mask and with the visors that they're wearing? How does he get hit there?
Well, first of all, you got to look out for piles. People think that, these are great and kind student athletes, and I'm sure they are off the field. But when you get in the bottom of one of those piles, there is kicking, scratching. It's like you're in the 5th grade or something, and everybody's trying to get that $100 bill. Also, sometimes a lineman puts his hands in your chest, and it slips up underneath your face mask into your eye, and all things are done. Yeah, all things are done with a heavy velocity and intent to damage. So when that happens, it can be catastrophic. But how about him coming back in the game? I mean, that was amazing. And also really cool to see Aaron Banks, the left guard, move out to left tackle. Vic, you and I, we cover the Broncos a lot. Yeah. We know the more versatility you show, the more valuable you are.
I mean, can you have any words for what this offense has done on the ground? Because it's one thing to be able to rip off some long runs. I mean, Florida State, literally, I couldn't see a defender in the vicinity of some of these running backs. It takes talent to run, granted, but the holes were huge.
And they were against the preseason All-American for Florida State as well. This is a historically great offensive line. I mean, you have to go back to the days of Aaron Taylor to kind of find an offensive line that had these many guys who are going to play a long time in the NFL. And it's always fun for me to entertain Notre Dame fans on the radio broadcast by saying all these guys could come back, because they don't burn up their eligibility. But, I mean, Jarrett Patterson just got named to the Remington Award list. I thought he's had a fantastic season already. Liam Eichenberg, I believe, will be a mid to late round first round pick, and I don't think Aaron Banks makes it out of the second round. So that's not to mention Tommy Kramer as well as Robert Hainsey. So there's the most talent with the most experience that we've seen in decades here at Notre Dame along that offensive line.
I was texting my buddy. I was like, watch number 24. Watch Tommy Tremble block. Just watch him seek physicality. It is a pleasure to watch him go.
Coach Kelly tells me that he has to calm him down in practice because he said that's how he plays in practice, which you love to hear even more. And it's been a while, too, since you've kind of seen that type of player at Notre Dame, which is, again, a great testament to the recruiting.
All right, so another ACC foe this week. It's Louisville. I think a lot of people expected more out of the Cardinals this year. They're 1-3, not the greatest start. But I went back and I looked at those losses. Miami did not blow them out. They actually hung with Miami. There are a couple losses on their schedule that I think they're better than their record.
And when I watch the film, Vic, there's a lot of speed on that team, especially on the defense. One of the things the defense does that's weird, though, is they look to the sidelines before the play. So if I'm Tommy Rees, I'm saying, hey, let's go on the quick count here and get some first sound snap counts. So while they're standing over there looking, we can get what we want. They're very susceptible in the deep threat, in the deep passing game, and I anticipate another big day for Notre Dame football on the ground.
Well, let's hope so, because every game in the COVID era is a huge game. I mean, you don't know how many games you'll play, right? So
correct.
Every game is a monumental game, and the fact that the Irish right now are ranked number 4 in the country and they're 3-0. Let's take a quick look back at how they dismantled Florida State.
Persistence, consistency, every single play. We keep after our opponent. That is the demand of excellence. It's that team, that individual, that unit that continuously comes after you every single play. No let up. 4 quarters. Let's start fast.
Irish have the sights set on big things, and for the first time in 3 weeks, here come the Irish.
Let's go there, have fun.
Let's go, oh! Give it to Williams, through the middle, and into the secondary, and on the run. And that's a way to get some redemption.
Throws underneath, complete, at the 5, and into the end zone, touchdown, Michael Mayer. The freshman with his first TD for Notre Dame.
We just getting started, baby. It's going to be a long night.
In trouble. Now running to his right and helicoptered up into the air by Owusu Koromoa.
Let's go score. Right here. Team is on here.
Williams he's got space. He's got lead blocker. He may take this the distance. Williams gone again. Notre Dame touchdown.
Keep balling, boy.
Untouched. Williams to the end zone. Notre Dame retakes the lead. Touchdown 2 for Kyron Williams tonight.
We had the game in balance. We let it go. We got it now back in control. Let's put it away. Dominate our opponents. Dominated means take care of the football. Do all the little things the right way. It starts with making adjustments. And now knowing what the game plan is. Let's go dominate the second half. Let's go play.
Jeremiah Owusu Koromoa, my goodness. He separated Webb's soul from his body.
Yeah, whoa!
The shotgun sets up, fires his deep shot down the right side. Complete at the 30-yard line and down to the 25. Javon McKinley.
The Irish are averaging 10 yards a play.
When you have an offensive line like we do, it allows us to to be able to expand our game and play our game.
Wow. It's an offensive line. They're a brotherhood up there, and they're tough.
There's not a group that I've coached that those 5 guys work so well together.
Florida State looking to chip away at the deficit. Throws to the one. Intercepted. Ball picked off. Sean Crawford.
You know, keep rolling, man. We got a long way to go.
It is so difficult to win. To do it in the fashion that we did it, by having to shut down operations and not practice, I couldn't be more proud of a group of guys that just went out and grinded it out and found a way to win today. We didn't have our A game today. But the mark of a great football team is that when you don't have your A game, you still beat your opponent. And we got here because of your commitment and the performance of 2 that I want to give the game balls to. Because we're not standing here today without Rob Hunt and Dr. Matt Lyle. It's all for you guys. It's all for you.
How about that? Some of the staff getting some game balls. What a great win for Notre Dame. Here's the part where we welcome in Aiden Thomas of The Observer. Aiden, man, welcome back to this week's show.
Thanks, Ryan. Great to be back on today.
Before we get started, what'd you like from the offense that you saw last week from Notre Dame?
I mean, I liked a lot of it. After the fumble on the first possession, I thought the offense just looked great pretty much all day. I mentioned last week I wanted to see them run the ball, and they definitely did that more than I expected. You guys mentioned in the intro, they were just the offensive line was opening up holes for Kyron Williams and Chris Tyree all day. And it was just really, really nice to see that Notre Dame really does have that 1-2 punch going forward to pound the rock.
Well, look out. You might be a NFL scout on the lookout after your prediction last week. And one of the things I love at this point in the year, especially on campus at Notre Dame, campus can start to change when you got a really good team. What was the vibe on campus this week after the big win?
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. So, you know, definitely going into the game, people weren't really sure what to expect. Obviously, it's been 3 weeks on campus. And then I think people have started to recognize that, like, people even recognize that wasn't Notre Dame's best, and they still beat Florida State by 16 points. And so the vibe is starting to get a little bit more optimistic. People are starting to get, you got Clemson coming in a couple of weeks, and people are already starting to look towards that game as, the biggest game a lot of us have been on campus for. So it's starting to get a little bit more electric on campus about the football team.
There's nothing like the leaves falling when that electricity's rising around Notre Dame Stadium. Well, let's talk about this week's opponent, the Louisville defense. What sticks out to you about them?
Louisville's defense has definitely had some struggles this year, but they definitely have a lot of talent. It's just been a lack of production so far. They're a really fast and athletic defense, but they've been very susceptible to certain, particularly the deep passing game is where they've struggled. Last week against Georgia Tech, they gave up 249 passing yards to Jeff Sims on just 11 completions. So over 20 yards per pass, or per completion, I should say. And then a couple weeks before that, they faced Derek King and gave up 320 yards on 17 or 18 completions. So they give up chunk plays, and that's what I'm expecting to see Ian Book, who looked a lot more comfortable last week in the pocket. I'm going to start seeing him target McKinley, target Braden Lenzy, target Tommy Tremble, and start ripping off chunks against the Louisville defense, which is where they've shown to have some weaknesses.
Well, I love it. You're getting me excited already. And that many passing yards, us Minnesotans say, oofda. That's a lot to give up against opposing quarterbacks. You mentioned some of the talent. Who are some of the key players for Louisville's defense?
Yeah, absolutely. Their biggest strength lies in their linebackers. So they've got C.J. Avery, Dorian Etheridge, and Monty Montgomery. Those guys are their 3 key players. Avery and Etheridge are seniors, and Montgomery's a redshirt junior. Avery has the only interception that Louisville's had this year. He intercepted Pitt's Kenny Pickett, who's a pretty solid quarterback. And then Dorian Etheridge is leading the way with 8.5 tackles for loss and 2 sacks. And Monty Montgomery has 4.5 tackles for loss and 2 sacks as well. So they definitely can make plays, and they'll be used in a variety of coverage packages. They'll hopefully try to, I'm sure they've seen the film of Tommy Tremble just being an absolute beast when he's blocking. So I'm sure they're going to have one of them match up against Tremble and try to limit the holes that Notre Dame can get for their backs, and then see if they can get some pressure to Ian Book, because it's been pretty dangerous for Book to have a clean pocket.
Lastly, you're the amateur NFL scout now, or you're amateur scout now. So when you look at that defense, what plays do you want to see from Notre Dame? Let's see if you can go 2 for 2.
I want to see a couple of deep balls to McKinley this week. I think he established himself as the number one receiver. I think that's a clear weakness on Louisville's defense, and it'd be really nice to see that that's kind of a second part of the offense that they can establish and have as a reliable backup if the ground game ever slows down.
Well, Aiden, I like the way you talk football, my friend. I love it. Have fun on campus and have fun at the game this weekend.
All right. Appreciate it, Ryan. Thank you.
Next, let's go to Coach Kelly. What does he think, and how is he preparing the team for this week's game against Louisville?
A well-coached football team, a team that, in my estimation, could be very easily on the other side of that 1-3 mark. And if they take care of the football, this is going to be one heck of a football game. So we're going to have to play our very best. We're going to have to play better than we did last weekend against Florida State. And that will be our focus this week. Again, it's normally about how we prepare, and we've done a really good job of that, and we'll have to get back to it this week.
And with that, let's bring back Charlotte Edmonds, our weekly chat. Charlotte with the Observer, of course, covering Notre Dame football. And let's start with what Brian Kelly just said about his opponent, Charlotte, Louisville. Their biggest problem, they can't hold on to the piggy. I mean, turnovers left and right.
Absolutely, and I couldn't agree with his analysis more. I think, as he said, they could very easily be on the opposite end of this 1-3 record. I think it's a very different situation than what you had from last year, where Louisville very much exceeded expectations set with Scott Satterwing's first season there, and they've kind of struggled to hold on to the ball and just close out games. So their losses, with the exception of the Pitt game, where they 3 interceptions were thrown and just in general could not find their mojo on that. They've had close losses. They've taken teams down to the wire, struggled a little bit against Georgia Tech this past week, but otherwise this team has all the pieces there to give Notre Dame a run for their money and kind of give them a threat in the ACC.
Yeah, that Georgia Tech game, you could argue, was their worst game. They get blown out 46-27, but they were right there with Pitt. They lost by 3. They lose to Miami 47-34. I mean, they put 34 on Miami. That's pretty good. One thing I noticed watching highlights of that Georgia Tech game, though, Charlotte, the running backs, they were literally getting the ball just taken from them. I mean, I'm sure they're going to focus on that this week against that Irish defense.
Well, and I think that'll be especially important considering some of the struggles we saw when analyzing the Notre Dame defense against Florida State. The secondary looked really good. I think the run defense on the line was a little bit lacking. You know, Florida State put up 153 yards, which was, I think Notre Dame had held their opponents to 120 yards or so. Granted, it's a different caliber of opponent. We're talking Florida State and now into Louisville and then Clemson up next. But this will definitely be an area that Louisville will look to protect, and also an area that I think Notre Dame's defense will look to exploit.
How would you characterize their offense? Malik Cunningham is their quarterback. What kind of offense do they run exactly?
Definitely more of a pass first, which I think will benefit Notre Dame's defense. Their secondary is their strength. Like I mentioned earlier, this is a very different situation that we're looking at last year for the season opener. For one, totally different quarterback. Juwan Pass was much more of a dual threat. He went down 2 games into the season with turf toe, and then Malik Cunningham kind of took over, and he's proven this is in his 3rd season getting playing time. So he is a veteran. He's the only, unlike the last 2 opponents that we've had where there's 3, maybe 4 quarterbacks in the mix, this is it for them. He's made all 4 appearances, and definitely more of a pass first. He passed for over 300 yards in the first 2 games. So you can expect Kyle Hamilton and company to get a lot of looks down for the deep balls.
You've really dressed up the room, I see.
I added a flag, exactly. My parents sent me some decor.
Oh, good. They saw the first couple episodes and said, "Hey, this ain't
a little bit embarrassed."
By the way, where do you sit for the games? Are you in the press box or are you in the student section?
So I've been in the student section for the last 3 games just because I wasn't covering it. I will be covering the Louisville game, so I'll be in the press box. That said, the Florida State game, you could just tell a total shift in momentum. So my seats were top of the section of the student section, but on the 40-yard line, really had great view otherwise. And I don't know if it was the night game, if it was Florida State, whatever it was, there was definitely a change in the energy. And I'm curious to see, I think that's expected to come up against Clemson, but we'll see if that can carry on through with Louisville this weekend.
Well, I want you to value those moments when you're in the student section. When I was at Notre Dame, I did every game in the press box, whether I was calling the radio for WVFI or working for the Observer or Sports Information. And I think I missed a great experience, being able to watch games with fellow students. That's something every Notre Dame student should go through.
Oh, I am very grateful when I have having sat in the press box. I can know the difference. And while that's always a great kind of professional experience, being in the students, there's nothing like being in the student section.
You're right. Charlotte, as usual, thanks. Thanks for the insight. We'll see you next week. All right. Now we're going to hear from Louisville coach Scott Satterfield. And it's hard when you have to describe an opposing team that is 3-0, undefeated, and ranked number 4 in the country.
I think the number one thing that stands out about Notre Dame is their offensive line, arguably the best offensive line in the country. I think, with the guys that have played a lot of ball together up front. Now, I think Coach Kelly has even said that it's his best offensive line since he's been at Notre Dame. These guys are good and, pass pro and run blocking. Ian Book, the quarterback, is obviously a very good player. Especially when they're able to run the football. And I think what they've shown this year is that they've got some very good backs that they're able to run the ball because of the offensive line opening up those holes. When you're able to do that, Book's able to stand back when it is time to throw and take his time and find an open receiver. So they're very impressive there. I think defensively, they have a lot of seniors, a lot of experience on that side of the ball. Guys can really run to the football. They try to keep everything in front of them, and they do an excellent job with that. And they're also excellent on third down. I think they're 15 or 16 or 17, 18% third down defense. I mean, so they're really good in that regard as well. Guys, this Notre Dame, they recruit the best players in the country year in and year out. They have depth. They have, it's just an outstanding program. I mean, we so there's really, as you look at them, there's not a ton of weaknesses on this football team.
Next up, we have one of the greatest players to ever play for Notre Dame. He's an NFL MVP. He also is in the College Football Hall of Fame. He's one of the greatest speakers out on the speaker circuit. Please welcome the great Joe Theismann. Joe, welcome.
Ryan, thank you so much. I just have to make one comment. When you listen to the Louisville coach, why are they even coming here?
Right?
Why are they play? I mean, he went through everything. It was amazing to listen to an opposing coach analyze a football team. And you got to be sitting there shaking your head. Their offensive line is great. Their quarterback has time. They run the football well. Their defense does a good job keeping everybody in front. And, I know they're going to show up and play hard, but I sort of had to chuckle as he went through the litany of what our football team looks like.
Well, and how often does an opposing coach start with the offensive line, right? Now, you've played quarterback. I'm biased. So, I think of the world of offensive linemen. What does having a great offensive line do for a quarterback when you get into a game?
Oh, listen, I know you're biased, and I am too. I think the most I think the most underrated position in football is the center because he's the traffic cop. He's the one that identifies slants. He identifies linebackers. He identifies the blocking. He does so many things from a communication standpoint that it makes a world of difference. Of course, I was very blessed both at Notre Dame to have a terrific offensive line and also with the Washington football team. I mean, my guys even got the name the Hogs. They named themselves. That's how good they were. I mean, you had the Purple People Eaters, you had, the Steel Curtain on defense, but on offense, you don't hear too many offensive lines other than up in Buffalo where they had the electric company. But it's a rare opportunity when you can get this many guys that have played that much time together like we have at the university. And I have to tell you, I've been watching Ian for the last 4 years throw the football around. I think last week he threw the football with velocity, with authority, and with accuracy, as well as I've seen him really play. And, he seems just so comfortable. And part of that, it's interesting. Part of that is Tommy Rees. We forgot Tommy Rees only coordinated one game last year. Now, all of a sudden, you really don't have the practices that you have under a quote unquote normal year. And I think Tommy's done a terrific job of finding things that he feels like Ian does well, the wide receivers do well. Obviously we're going to be a run-first football team, and that places a little more onus on a quarterback because you don't get to throw the ball around 50 times a game. You don't want to. So the ones that you do throw, you have to be much more accurate with. And so I think Tommy's really finding his stride as the coordinator as well.
I agree with you. I love that in that game last week against Florida State, it's a little tight, and the propensity for some offensive coordinators would be, let's put it in Ian Book's hands and make some plays. Tommy Rees goes, we're going to run the football. And at one point, even in the third quarter, calling 6 straight runs. Now, what we're talking about Notre Dame, what are a couple of your favorite memories of playing at Notre Dame?
Well, I think one of the things, and you've heard the people from the Observer talk about it, is the student body. I remember the first time I ran into that stadium. You had the student body on the right side. You had the Notre Dame band on the left side. Everybody was screaming and yelling. At that time, it was really over 50,000 fans, Notre Dame fans, obviously. And so to me, it was just the energy and the excitement. And even watching games today, it's a very limited amount of people in the stands, but you can still feel and hear the energy. And that to me is what Notre Dame is all about. It's who we are. It's what we do. And then having a chance to play for Ara Parseghian there and to be able to put the wins together that we did as a football team, it was an unbelievable group of guys and coaches. And it was great to see some of the doctors and training staff get some game balls, because through this situation with the COVID virus and everything we're dealing with, they certainly are MVPs when it comes to keeping everybody on the football field and setting up the protocol and programs. But I just running into that stadium was just one of the greatest feelings. And of course, beating Texas in the Cotton Bowl, our second go around with them, that was a little gratifying in itself.
Yeah, it always feels like you beat the state of Texas when you beat a Texas team. That's some of the joy of it. Now, I know one of the things from being around you and being able to share some time with you, you're a fantastic leader. It's evident, with your family, with your loved ones, friends. But you've also been a quarterback, and there's so much different leadership that goes into being a quarterback. What are some of the keys to being a great leader, as many of our viewers are leaders in their own right?
Well, I think one of the things when it comes to leadership is, first of all, and I say this a lot, you have to know what you don't know. You have to be willing to find people who are smarter than you. You have to be willing to share your experiences with them, and you have to be able to process information from them. None of us knows everything. And you have to be, even though you get to a position where it's quote unquote one of authority, you still have to be able to get information from other people and then figure out who the best is at doing what they do. I have a book out called How to Be a Champion Every Day, and I talk about different experiences at the University of Notre Dame. And leadership is such a big part of being a quarterback at Notre Dame. It's like no other place in the country. If you're managed to be a quarterback at the University of Notre Dame, it's something that stays with you the rest of your life. And you look at the litany and the legacy that is there. I think also being able to be accountable for your actions. Now, I asked a guy by the name of Al Sanders. He was a coach in the National Football League. And I asked him, what do you look for in a championship player? Now, keep in mind, I didn't ask him what he looked for in a player. I asked him what he looked for in a championship player. He says, I want to know if they're members of the Abel family. Are they available? Are they reliable? And are they accountable? That to me is that's what leadership is. You have to be available to play and practice every day. It's the only way you can lead is on the field. You have to be reliable. When you're asked to do things, that's how you separate yourself from everybody else, is doing things that most people would look at as, not very normal and very difficult, but yet you get it done. And then accountable. If you screw up, let them know. Don't blame somebody else. It's easy to point a finger at a receiver or a running back. I never, ever accused anybody in the huddle or on the team of making a mistake. I took full responsibility for anything and everything, even though the ball wasn't in my hand. If it was an errant pass to a receiver, it was my fault. It wasn't the fact that he might have been out of position, he might have been bumped. It didn't matter. It was my fault. And that way, then guys start to believe in you. And then the last and most important thing, when the opportunity presents itself for you to be able to make a play, you better make the play. That way everybody will follow you because they believe in you.
You would have fit in very well on our Super Bowl 50 team, my friend. And by the way, in making that play and that opportunity or making that pitch, process alleviates anxiety. Focus on that process. You mentioned something in there, though, that I really liked. You may do things that look different or weird to other people. And I love that because for a lot of my years in the NFL, as you know, some teams don't want to win. So if I was trying to win, doing all the right things, I could be the outcast. But that also goes on teams when you have to work with people different than you. How did you find, what was your process to work with people who are different from you, maybe who didn't go to Notre Dame, and you still had to work together? What were some of those keys for you?
Well, one word in particular comes to mind, and it seems like it's not as much of a vocabulary for people today, is respect. Respect everybody for who they are, what they are, their beliefs. We're all different. Let's face it, everybody is different. And just respect them. When you get out, you get your opportunity on a football field to be able to show who you are as a football player. And you're going to keep your job based upon your ability to play, or you're going to lose your job based upon your ability not to be able to do things. But you have to respect other people and always be willing to share. Even though I was a starting quarterback in the National Football League at the University of Notre Dame, I've always wanted to try and help anybody that was a quarterback on our team. We would draft somebody. What can I do to help them? I think part of that had to do with the fact that I believed in my ability so much, because I have another little favorite saying, if you don't believe in who you are, who's going to believe in you? And so I wanted to be able to share that information. We're not here to be served, Ryan. We're here to serve other people. And you do that in so many different ways. And so for me, being able to share the experience of being a starting quarterback, I do it now with young ones. I mean, I communicate with Drew, I communicate with Ian. I just, anything I can do to help them, let them know that they're doing really a good job. And like I said, I was so impressed with Ian this week. I thought he really laid a foundation now for himself to be able to perform at a very high and special level.
Well, and I tell people all the time, although I think I could have been a quarterback, Joe, not as good as you. I say that quarterback position, everybody wants to think it's arm strength. Well, it's really making quick decisions. And I thought Ian did that well. And I'm going to force you to make a quick decision here for our last question. You've got the Theismann Restaurant and Bar in Virginia. Is there a Ryan Harris burger on there?
Actually, there's not a Ryan Harris burger, but after this conversation that we're having, the pressure is on. And I just want to say one other thing. I never dreamt about being an offensive lineman, Ryan. I got to tell you that.
Well, few people are lucky enough to have that dream. Well, thank you so much, Joe, for joining us on the show. Here Come the Irish. You're a legend, and you continue to inspire everywhere you go. We appreciate it.
Thanks, buddy. Great to be with you, and go Irish.
Go Irish. And here is your favorite part for the viewers. It's Vic's picks, your chance to win. Vic, what do you got?
Thanks, Ryan. And I will tell you, there's not a Harris burger, but there is a Harrisburg.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, there's a Harrisburg. So
I can start. Pepper jack and peanut butter. That's what's got to be on the burger. A couple pickles.
This is an opportunity for folks that participate in this Vic's pick to win one of these. Ryan is wearing one. He wears his every week. It is a Notre Dame hoodie. Here come the Irish hoodie in specific. Oh, man, these are tough to keep in production right now. So many people want them. You can buy them, by the way. More on that a little bit later. But first, I want to congratulate last week's winners. We had two winners from last week. Charlie Gengler from the Soren Society and Larry Arseniadis from the Order of St. Thomas More. Congratulations, guys. You beat me in Vic's picks. Here's how it works. Pretty simple. 4 categories. Will Notre Dame win or lose? Will Notre Dame cover the spread? It's 17 this week. How many total yards of offense will the Irish generate? And the last one, just for fun, what is the final score? All right. We go to each of the Notre Dame Giving Societies, a representative from every one. We're going to go around the horn, and we're going to begin with Rich Teague representing the Kavanaugh Council. Rich, you're from, where is this, Tullahoma, Tennessee?
Tullahoma, Tennessee, yes.
Where's Tullahoma?
Yes, southern middle Tennessee. We are about 40 miles north of the Alabama border, about midway between Nashville and Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Never forget my senior year in Notre Dame, we made the drive down, and we did it in one fell swoop to Knoxville to watch the Irish against the Vols. And that scene in Knoxville is pretty cool, how they have the boats on the river behind the stadium. That is really awesome.
Yeah, you live here, you can root for anybody you want as long as it's Tennessee or Alabama.
It's a
little harder to find Notre Dame fans down here.
That's how it works. It's all right. We won't tell your neighbors. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Rich, let's kick things off here. First of all, will Notre Dame win the game?
Yes.
All right. And how will they beat the spread?
Yes, they're going to beat the spread. I'm predicting they're going to win by 24.
My goodness. And you got 525 yards of offense?
Yeah, I'll tell you, from what I've seen, I think that coming off that extended period without a game, they really looked sharp after the first few drives last week. I think they're going to be able to run the ball, and I think that's going to open up the play-action passing game. As was talked about earlier, I think Ian Book is starting to really go down the field now. Much deeper passes. I think in the second half, they're really gonna run it up.
Doesn't it make you feel better, by the way? We've all seen how much better Ian Book has gotten when you hear a former quarterback like Theismann see it and talk about it. I mean, he saw it right away. So Ian Book is really working into his own. Thank you very much, Rich. Let's hope you win the sweatshirt.
Okay, go Irish.
Up next, representing the Jesse Harper Council, class of 74, Joan Gluck from New Hope, PA. Joan, you're up next on Vic's Picks. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I love your shirt there.
Oh, thank you. Go Irish, right?
Yeah. When's the last time you've been to campus?
Well, last fall.
Okay. Yeah, so we all want to get back there. In fact, I will be there October 25th and 26th, and I'll tell you more about that a little bit later. So I can't wait to get back there. How do you watch games? I asked some of the alum last week, how do you watch a Notre Dame football game?
Well, we watch with friends from Notre Dame who live by us here, who we've spent a lot of time with doing COVID stuff together because we're all kind of locked down doors from each other.
Yeah.
Our next door neighbors, we have a little summer home on the New Jersey shore, and our next door neighbor has an outdoor TV. So we watched the season opener there, which was pretty wonderful.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And last week we watched it with our girls in our home. It was a very exciting game to watch. So
I notice you pronounce it Notre Dame. Some pronounce it Notre Dame. Why the accentuation on the R there?
I guess I probably learned it growing up from my dad. It's how my dad pronounced it, Notre Dame. That's where we went.
Notre Dame. I like that. It's more sophisticated than Notre Dame. I'm going to start doing that. Okay, Joan, let's go through this. Will the Irish win the game?
Yes, we will.
Cover the spread. Yes, you say yes.
Yeah.
And 425 yards of offense. How'd you come about that number?
Well, last week we did 554. The week before that, 429. I think probably Louisville is coming in with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. They'd love to take away our 21 game, soon to be 22 game losing streak at home. So I kind of averaged numbers, and I figured 425 is a pretty safe bet.
I don't remember what I had for breakfast. You're spitting out stats there. My goodness, you should be doing this job.
Oh, I don't think so, but thanks for the offer.
No, what's the final score? I'm sorry, did I miss that?
38-17.
38-17 Irish. Thank you, and good luck to you.
Thanks so much.
All right, up next, representing the Congregation of Holy Cross, Father Matt Kazora. Father, how we doing?
I'm doing great, Vic. How are you?
Did I pronounce the name correctly?
You nailed it. There's some other consonants in there, but you really did it well.
Yeah, you do have a lot of different consonants. It's okay. You got through it. Where are you reporting from? Are you in your room there? Where are you?
Yeah, so I live at Moreau Seminary on the north side of campus. I'm a law student actually right now.
Oh, really? What kind of law?
So just regular civil law. I've been a rector the last 5 years on campus, trying to get some more skills to do that kind of student affairs work.
Is the campus, because most of the students are stuck indoors, is it louder? Is it more quiet? What's it like? I mean, give us a sense.
Amazing weather this year. 2020 has a lot of other things, but weather at South Bend has been great. So students are out and about. There's nice places for them to sit, lights outside, little fire pits. So people are around all the time.
Do you have a forecast for Saturday since you're there?
Yeah, I think it's going to be the last of our good weather. I think right after the game, probably it's just going to be fall into winter.
Oh, don't say that, because I'm going to be there in 10 days, and I want no part of winter right now. I want more fall seasonal weather when I get out to Notre Dame. All right, let's get things going. Father's picks here. You have Notre Dame winning the game, obviously.
I do. A lot of faith there.
You have them covering the spread. And 402 yards offense. Why 402?
I just want to go a little bit over 400. Looking at the last couple of games, I mentioned I was a rector. 3 of the 5 O-linemen, we're talking about O-line U, they are Dunn Hall alums. A lot of faith in them. I think they're going to open up all kinds of holes, protect the quarterback, get us some yards.
Final score, Father.
Let's go 35-17 Irish.
35-17. We've got you down. Let's hope you beat me in Vic's picks, okay?
All right, thanks.
Take care. All right, up next, Bob Fitzgerald, class of 88, representing the Athletics Director's Circle, joining us from San Mateo, California. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing good, Vic. How are you?
Are those Emmys right behind you?
Yes, they are.
Emmys for?
I'm the TV announcer for the Golden State Warriors.
I thought I knew you. I didn't know you were the same Bob Fitzgerald. I was like, oh, my goodness.
Same one.
Awesome. That's awesome. I thought that's where I saw you before, because I do work for the Denver Nuggets out here.
There you go.
And, we've had a pretty darn good season. You guys sort of had a bye week season is what they call it, right?
We took the gap year after 5 straight trips to the finals.
So when you were at Notre Dame, did you do what I did? How did you make your way into broadcasting?
Yeah, I did some of the football and basketball on WVFI, then got my master's at Ohio State and did CBA basketball, and then hosted a talk show here in San Francisco for 28 years and 5 Olympics with NBC and 28 years with the Warriors and 17 years doing NFL stuff. So I've been pretty busy.
Bob, I must have just missed you because I arrived at Notre Dame in '88, and that's when you were heading out of town.
Right.
Man, you were there. I was there for the glory years, to be honest with you. Lou Holtz won a national championship, of course, with that team. And then the next 2 years, I think we lost 3 games. So it was awesome. It was so much fun at that point. Did you always know you wanted to do this?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Chicago on the South Side. My dad was an electrician at Comiskey Park for the White Sox, and their announcer when I was a little kid was Harry Carey before he went to the Cubs. So to me, from Harry Carey to Wayne Larrabee with the Bears and Jim Durham with the Bulls, those were always kind of my idols. So yeah, it's definitely, as an Irish guy in Fitzgerald, I knew if I was talking for a living, I would be stealing. So it's worked out pretty good.
Well, that's so cool. All right, Bob, you are an expert of sorts when it comes to this. Get your predictions out there right now. Do the Notre Dame Irish win this game?
They do win the game, just like Jones said previously. It'll be 38-17. They beat Louisville last year 35-17. The difference is that Louisville has 11 turnovers their first 3 weeks. They put the ball on the ground and throw it away. So Notre Dame should do okay in the turnover category. But Javion Hawkins had 8 100-yard rushing games a year ago for Louisville, 1,500 yards on the ground. They'll be able to run, or they'll try to run. And you know ND is going to run with our offensive line and the way Tyree and Kyron Williams have played. So, you know, I think it's a 38-17, maybe a little cosmetic score by Louisville late. But I think Notre Dame's building, and, you know, the funky off practice, getting everybody healthy for Florida State. This is a legitimate week of practice. Clark Lee will have the defense much better. And I agree with Joe Theismann. Ian Book, there was accuracy, there was decisiveness. He bought extra time in the pocket. And Kevin Austin's going to have at least one 20 or 30-yard catch in this game.
Can I get some advice from you?
You got it.
So I host a radio show, as does Ryan Harris here in Denver. And, you know, we're a Denver show. And I find myself talking a lot about Notre Dame football. And you know how it is. You get the audience that's expecting something else. Do you get a lot of eye rolls, or how do you handle that when you want to talk as much Notre Dame football as possible, but it doesn't necessarily apply to your direct audience?
Well, the thing is, I mean, Notre Dame is the only national university when it comes to college football, which is normally a regional sport. So to me, you might as well talk about the school with the most NFL Hall of Famers, the most college football Hall of Famers, consistently the highest graduation rate, that plays an elite schedule and has 11 national championships. Why wouldn't that be a good topic? Because they can be top 10 in everything we do, rather than try to not graduate kids, cheat on the sides, you know, and run a program that maybe isn't you can just shine a light upon. So to me, I'll talk Irish football all day because we're trying to do things the right way. And when we do win another national championship, we'll prove that you can be a student athlete and still have the student part mean something.
Bob, thank you for your picks. We'll chat when Golden State comes to town, my friend.
Sounds good, Vic. Anytime.
All right, take care. Good luck to you. Up next, let's see. Who do we have here? I believe we go to Andy Mcguire, class of 95, representing the President's Circle. What's up, Andy?
Hello, Vic. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having us.
Well, you're so close there in Illinois. How many games do you get to?
As many as I can. You know, it's hard to not go this year, but my boys love going too, and my 7-year-old girl, and so we go to 3 or 4 or 5 if we can make it happen.
Did you always know you wanted to go to Notre Dame? How did that work out?
I did. I grew up in Indianapolis at a school, and a lot of us really love Notre Dame. And
did you go to Cathedral?
Yes.
How did I know that?
There was many came before me, headed to Notre Dame from Cathedral, and so I was among them. And you know, grew up listening on the radio to the Irish with my dad, watching the car or working in the yard, and I was one of those kids.
All right, let's make your picks, my man. What do you think?
All right. Well, Notre Dame's going to win 45-24. I think the offense is firing on all cylinders, particularly the running game. And just like one of your earlier guests, 525 yards of offense.
525. So a thorough beatdown, 45-24. Is it going to be one of those close 45-24s, or will the game be out of reach by the fourth quarter?
I think it's going to be Notre Dame with a healthy lead, and put in some other players maybe at the end, and maybe Louisville catches up a little, but it won't be as close as that score.
Andy, good luck to you, my man.
Thanks, Vic.
Take care. Let's welcome in Gary Sobalewski from the Soren Society, class of 74. Gary joins us from Plano, Texas. Ooh, I love your background. You did you dress this up just for the show here, Gary?
No, this is our Notre Dame room, Vic.
What else do you have in that room?
Well, let's see. We've got a personalized Rudy jersey, a brick from the original stadium. My father-in-law went to Notre Dame, so we've got a couple of pieces of memorabilia that he gave us. And then we have a picture of my wife with Tommy Clements celebrating in Pat O'Brien's after the Sugar Bowl our senior year. We were fortunate enough to go down there.
That's outstanding. So it sounds like you get back to a lot of games.
We try to. Both of our kids went to Notre Dame. My wife and I are both from the Chicago area, and we still have friends there. So it's a nice combination trip.
How'd you end up in Texas?
Well, I started out of Notre Dame working for a small computer company called IBM. It stands for I've Been Moved. And moved around at one point in time 6 times in 7 years, and settled here in the Dallas area in 1987.
Beautiful. All right, take us through your picks, Gary.
I love Andy Mcguire's picks. I've got pretty much the same thing. I think Irish roll 45-24. That means they cover the spread. I've got them at 490 in terms of total yards. I think first of all, Louisville's defense is undersized up front, so we should be able to run close to at will. Their cornerbacks are small. One of them's out for the first half, and I think Ian Book is developing a chemistry with his wide receivers. So I could see us having 45 points at the end of 3 quarters and having Brian Kelly call off the dogs and get some of the younger guys some excitement.
The beauty of doing this show is I get a better scouting report from our alumni than I do anybody else. You know more about Louisville than I've heard other people. What do you follow Louisville football or something? You've been doing your research?
I follow them when they play Notre Dame.
Gary, great job, man. Let's hope you win.
Thank you.
All right,
take care. Go Irish.
Let's bring in Mike and Patty Gehring. Mike's going to handle the picks here. They they're from Perrysburg, Ohio. Mike, Patty, are you both going to pick here, or is Mike going to do most of the talking?
Mike's the man.
Well, Patty, you're welcome to pick too. If you overrule him on something, don't you worry about it. You let him know.
I already told him what I thought, so I think he kind of averaged it, maybe.
All right, good. All right, Mike, tell us what Patty thought then. Tell us what the prediction is.
Well, she was definitely sure Notre Dame was going to win. Score should be 42-17, so we'll beat the spread. Yardage will be about 418. And I think with the way Notre Dame integrated the wide receivers last week, they've got the tight ends already working well. The run game's outstanding, so they should roll through the game pretty easily.
You're doing this live from your own Notre Dame room. What do you have there in your Notre Dame room?
We got a couple of signed footballs and some mugs that have been signed by the national title team women's basketball team.
Oh, cool. Well, I'm sure you can't wait to get back for games. We're all anticipating when they open up the gates again. So, listen, appreciate your picks. And if you win, you're going to have to fight over the sweatshirt.
Sounds good.
All right. Take
Thanks,
care.
man.
That's Mike
you.
and Patty Gehring. Let's bring in now, representing the Order of St. Thomas More, Shaw Friedman. Shaw from the class of 84. What's up, Shaw?
Vic, I'm not getting sound. I know you're there, but hopefully you can hear me and maybe they can pipe some sound through to me. First off, I want to tell you what a pleasure it is to be on the show with you. A real treat to be on the same show with Joe Theismann. Really appreciated his message of tolerance and acceptance and the work ethic that he embodies. So that's a great treat.
Who do you like in this game? Why? How many yards and all that business?
As you know, the Irish, Louisville coming off 3 straight losses against ACC teams. I don't see their luck changing this week at the stadium. They gave up 450 yards of offense last week to Georgia Tech. I predict the Irish will once again be able to move the ball up and down the field with ease. I think the Irish will put up 465 yards offense, will come on top. You got several others predicting the same score. 45-24, Irish able to cover the spread. With the Irish now up to 4th in the country, look for the Irish to continue to try and receive style points with a good, strong victory as we look to increase our chances at making the college playoffs.
Now, that man is a savvy veteran. Even if he can't hear me, he knows what he's doing. He made his picks, and we hope he wins. Thank you, Shaw. Finally, our final contestant representing Rockney Athletics Fund, class of 89, Carrie Debs. Carrie, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Vic, loud and clear. How
Awesome.
you doing?
Very good, thank
I was thinking a couple people ago, great, I'm following a priest and a professional broadcaster. So here I am, humble women's golfer alum.
Carrie, you should know one thing about professional broadcasters. We know the least. We have no idea what we're talking about, okay? That's how, we just play in this game, all right? Carrie, what do you think? What do you think is going to happen Saturday?
Well, I think, definitely Notre Dame's going to win. And I have them at a score of 42-10, covering the spread by, if my math is correct, 15 points. As far as total offensive yards, I went with 525 yards, but for a different reason than the other gentleman. I just picked a nice long par 5 for a golfer like me.
So, Carrie, I'm a golfer too. Did you golf today?
I did not golf today, but I will be golfing Friday in Pinehurst. I live in North Carolina, so that's a really fun place to play. A lot of Notre Damers, a lot of Domers down there in Pinehurst.
Oh, I would say so. Where did you live? Because we must have crossed paths a year or two at Notre Dame. Where were you living at the time?
You betcha. You said you arrived in 88. I was on campus in 88 and 89, living in Baden. Walking down to the old Burke Memorial Golf Course, which was right down the quad there. That was where we hosted tournaments. Remember that?
I do. And I'm so glad that they hung on to at least half of the Burke, right? It's still part there. I love that. I love it.
On it during football games.
Yep.
What are you shooting these days in golf?
I'm either really good or really bad. I had like a career year because I played so much, but then I started playing too much. And you know how golf is. You start trying to groove your swing and then it gets bad again. So it's up and down. It's all over the place. We could talk golf all day, but that's another show. Carrie, good luck to you.
Thank you, Vic. Take care.
All
Go
right.
Irish.
Take care. All right, that's all of our pickers, and here's what they're picking against. Vic's official picks this week. And mind you, I always shoot low because I want the Irish to prove me wrong. So if it feels like I'm cynical, I'm not. It's just that I always want to do this. I do it with a purpose. I think the Irish win a tougher game than people expect, 30-17, only because I think Louisville might be better than their record. Do I think they'll cover the spread? No. And they'll hover around 400 yards of offense. Those are my picks. Best of luck to everybody who made their picks today, because it sounds like if they go higher than that, everybody's going to win a sweatshirt. Before we get back to Ryan, let me welcome in another video walking through the Notre Dame locker room with Notre Dame legends.
Now, the success of any team, man, based on team play, sacrifice, unselfish sacrifice. These other fellows, they say, are pretty good, but I think we're better.
We have a great defense. Yeah! And we've got a great offense. Let's not lose sight of the fact that we're undefeated too. Yeah! And I want to be able to count on the Notre Dame spirit tomorrow afternoon.
The important thing is to understand that all the great teams overcome adversity. We're going to have it in our life. We're going to have it sometime today. We're going to have it sometime next week. And you're going to have it the rest of your life, but you'll never achieve anything till we understand that adversity is what we look for. Because in adversity, there's opportunity.
Our Father,
who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name.
Now it's about playing the game. And the way you play the game here at Notre Dame, the discipline, the confidence. It's about this locker room playing for each other, playing for Notre Dame. It's about a family that comes together for one day a week. Great energy. Keep the energy up. We got 4 quarters of football. Finish on 2, 1, 2, finish.
All right, Ryan. Final thoughts. You heard all of our Vic's Picks contestants. I am always amazed at how much Notre Dame alum know about football, more so than normal alum, right? You know, you meet alumni of universities, but you talk to Notre Dame fans and they know the game.
Yeah, and I love too that the love for Notre Dame's not just in football. You know, I think people sometimes see alumni and we love Notre Dame football. What it really is, we love Notre Dame. And that comes through as well when you see some of those Notre Dame rooms. It just makes me so happy to be a part of the Notre Dame family.
I have my Notre Dame room upstairs, and I'll walk you through it next time. But everybody you live a Notre Dame room. I mean, all of your stuff is authentic. I mean, it's basically stuff you played with, right?
Yeah, I've got a couple of jerseys up here. Maybe next show we'll do a little walk through the Notre Dame room, and I got some great Notre Dame game balls that still haven't worn their ink. So it's fun to see the journey of where it started and how far I was able to take it through the NFL and beyond.
I wanted to tell Joe Theismann my most prized Notre Dame possession. I've got an autographed Lou Holtz picture here, but I also have an autographed green Joe Theismann jersey. And I'm not sure if it was game worn. I've always wanted to ask him, did you wear this during the game? Not that he'd remember, but I'm hoping he said yes. But I have that upstairs. That's probably my most prized Notre Dame possession I own.
Well, make sure you tell people that it was a game-worn jersey. They'll never find out. And the thing that people, if you haven't had the chance to meet Joe, what I've loved every time I've met him, Joe Theismann is the most kind, warming, inviting person, wants to know about you, wants to see how he can help, and he's always fun to talk football with, and that was a blast today.
Well, I know you're going back to campus this weekend for the game. You're calling the game on the radio. I will be back on campus for Notre Dame Day, October 26th and 27th. It starts at 6:42 Eastern, and it runs until midnight each night. That's October 27th and the 27th, a special fall edition of Notre Dame Day. We'll focus on students and all the great things the students are doing at ND this season. Want to say goodbye. And want to do it in a special way because most recently the Notre Dame Music Festival was held in the stadium. Pretty cool concept. It was held on September 24th. And during that, musical groups from the entire student body performed. This one you're going to see as we say goodbye, Ryan, is the Notre Dame Orchestra playing the Victory March as students clap their way onto the field. See you next week on Here Come the Irish.